I have spoken to so many users, women who struggle with their life stages. So from menarche, so that's when you get your first period, all the way through menopause, there are so many different experiences that you might have where you need care below the waist. So,
It
and
could
so for me,
be
it's like there's all this, there's taboo and there's shame associated, especially with women's health in this regard. And I would love to create a space that is absent that taboo and shame, and that lends itself to an opportunity for women and or people to come and get the needs met that are related to a lot of those pain points. So
Welcome to the Share the Wealth Show, where minority professionals can learn to escape the racial wealth gap and catapult themselves into abundance. Your host, Nicole Pendergrass, grew her net worth from being negative to multiple six figures. Join her on her investigative mission to expose secret strategies of the wealthy so we can all have the tools needed to build the life and legacy we were created to possess. Now it's time for the show.
Hey guys, so we're back again. Go back to the previous episode and listen to that first, and then come back and join us here today. Oh, you need to hear the whole conversation. There's so many nuggets. It's so juicy. Go back and listen to the first part. You said entrepreneurship is about finding an issue and solving the problem. So what problem is your vagina health? Casa de Luna?
Casa de la Luna, yeah. And
Casa de
you know
la
what?
Luna.
Like the name
Okay.
might change. Like I don't know, because anyway, neither here nor there. It doesn't roll off the tongue that naturally, and that's what I realized. And I love the name. The logo is what's powerful. If I show it to you, it's actually the background of my phone for anyone who's like actually watching this instead of listening. But
Oh, the moon. I saw it
yeah.
on the thing. Yeah, but it goes with Luna. Luna is moon.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. No, I completely get that with the name thing. We could talk about that
Cool.
later. But
Um,
yeah, so what problem were you solving, and how is your company solving it?
Totally. So I'll give you like the brief pitch and then I'll answer the direct question. So basically, Casa de la Luna is a Sephora for vaginas. It is a place that offers feminine hygiene, intimacy, and vaginal care products related to women's health care below the waist. It is not a sex shop. It is not a pharmacy, and it is not a clinic, but it has elements of all of those three. The problem that it seeks or aims to solve is I don't believe that there is a place currently where women can go and get those needs specifically met, and or have a curated environment where you can directly ask questions of or get support through that process. Now, I want to be really clear. It is a retail approach. It is not a clinical approach. We do not pretend to be experts in things that we are not. And I think it's a huge market that is totally underserved. I can't even begin to tell you, like, when you're starting a startup, right? Especially one that you're going to go the venture route for. The most important thing is, like, forget about talking to investors, talk to users, start talking to your customers, understand how you're going to do this. If you're going to take something and you believe that it's going to grow to scale, right? Like what I need for my business, I need to raise about 3.25 million. And so I'm in that process, and I've had to revamp because I lost my co-founder, and now I've pivoted the direction that I'm going to start at. But again, these are all things that are natural and normal and happen. And the more that I talk to people, they're like, just don't give up. And so I feel really secure in it. But it's taken a long time and it's been really tough, this experience. So anyway, back to what it solves. I have spoken to so many users, women who struggle with their life stages. So from menarche, so that's when you get your first period, all the way through menopause, there are so many different experiences that you might have where you need care below the waist. So it could be something like having a baby. It could be experiencing menopause hot flashes. It could be having a miscarriage, right? It could be your first period and how, maybe you've got a swim competition. This happened to me. I was 11 years old. I was 10 when I got my period, but when I was 11, and I was an avid swimmer, and I was a very good swimmer. And my mom was like, Savannah, you have to swim. There's no choice. Like, you have to. And I had to learn how to put a tampon in when I was very, very young. And so for me, it's like, there's taboo and there's shame associated, especially with women's health in this regard. And I would love to create a space that is absent that taboo and shame, and that lends itself to an opportunity for women and or people to come and get the needs met that are related to a lot of those pain points. So when I told you that I talked to users, I've had people say like, no one told me I was going to get a period. I lied and told people I had a cut on my butt for days at school. I've had people tell me, Savannah, I went to the doctor and I was suffering through menopause and I was having brain fog and all these things. And I thought I was experiencing perimenopause, but I'm actually postmenopause. And that's an emotional transition for me. And I don't even know how to tell my boss that I need a couple of days off to deal with that. I've had people tell me, hey, I had a lodged IUD and I got, I went to many professionals and they couldn't tell me what was wrong. And it wasn't until I, went to Planned Parenthood and got that removed that I finally discovered I had a major issue. Like there are so many different experiences. And the more I talked to women, the more passionate I felt about this. And it was also stemmed from my own vaginal health issues. So I was amazed by what I learned in traditional Chinese medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, in non-traditional Western medicine. So like, how do we use what we know from our communities? I'm Caribbean, I'm Puerto Rican and Italian. I didn't say that at the beginning of this, but on my Puerto Rican side, my grandmother, who I'm not very close with, but she's very spiritual and she's always like had botanicas and done that kind of thing. My sister, my older sister, followed kind of in those footsteps, and she did a lot of apothecary studies and uses herbs and medicines and balms and things that she creates in her home to heal. And so for me, I was obsessed for a long time about how can we heal at scale? How can we provide an environment? And again, I don't want it to sound like nonprofit-y, because it is much more like the Sephora for Vaginas build. However, there isn't really a comfortable place for us to go and buy a pregnancy test or to shop for a vibrator. That could just be fun and normal, right? So yeah, vibrators, not handcuffs. Does that make sense? So it's not a sex shop, but it does have intimacy things, right? And then when it comes to other needs, so whether that's a tea or a tincture or anything that you might need, I've had people come to me and say, hey, Savannah, like I had a miscarriage and it was such a frustrating experience. And again, I have had permission to share these anonymously. I'm not putting anyone on Front Street right now. Yeah. I promise. But I've had people explain that and say like, it was deeply emotional and I had to spend the weekend with my family and I had to go buy adult diapers because there wasn't an alternative that was readily available to me in that town or in that space. So the long-term vision, I'll close out here, is to really build some automated stores. And I'm actually in conversation with Kenzie from Barrett's Vending, who you've had on the show before. Yeah, she's fantastic. She's so bright. She's so smart. He's out in Costa Rica and having conversations about building, vending
machines. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that
a woman's health vending machine.
Yeah. So most of the stores I envision like being automated. However, what I want to start with is the experience stores, which are very distinct. So those are more like, you can come in, there's live events, there's actual shopping. It will feel much more like Lush or like Sephora, big. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you can come to a book signing, you can come watch a documentary series. And I want that to be more community-led, not Casa de la Luna-led. So we are the hosts, if that makes sense. And again, like the visioning for this is not finished. We're still building iterations of it, but that's kind of like the long-term dream or goal, having a place where people can collect and come and just really wow, look at all this amazing stuff. However, the vending model is more like what will be sustainable and scalable over time in a different way from the experience stores, which are more like fun, friendly vibe. That is more like, hey, here are some basic needs. Like, do you need an emergency panty? Do you need an emergency wipe? Like just basic things for care below the waist. And so that's it. That's Casa de la Luna.
I love it. I'm glad I asked you about that.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you were able to go in on it. What I really want to just to go into like, if people, because the show's all about like, you gave actionable steps for like wealth building, but even in the entrepreneurial space, it's like, okay, if someone has an idea like that, how do they go about that? Or like, what's that journey? What's some things you learned and blah, blah, blah. So all of those things, but everyone can schedule a call with Savannah if you want to dig into that journey more. And I know we'll have your contact information, or you could connect with her on social media to make sure that you have more access or information about, her products, her journey, on either side, entrepreneurial with Casa de Luna, or with the wealth building stuff. Because all of it, it's like all works in tandem, and I see how they all support each other, and they're all in the same, even though they seem so different on the surface, but underneath I see the passion and the why behind all of it working together. Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll finish up with the last few questions that I ask every guest.
Yes, ma'am.
So the first one is, Warren Buffett said that diversification is protection against ignorance. And what do you think he meant by that? Is that a good or a bad thing? What's your take?
Listen, I know you've been digging in, studying everything you can, listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books, even going to meetups. You basically have a degree from YouTube University, right? But you still feel stuck. You don't know how to actually implement what you've learned. You're nervous about taking the next step. So I've decided to start the Microfamily Investing Accelerator. This is a mentorship program where I personally guide you through my 5 proprietary pillars, so you can learn how to buy your first commercial multifamily property and scale while not biting off more than you can chew by focusing on 5 to 20 units. That's what I call microfamily. And so you can also get hands-on guidance from an experienced microfamily investor who's been right where you are. And so you can also create the cash flow needed to give you freedom and options to build the abundant life that you were destined to live. So I'll be limiting the first cohort because they'll have direct access to me, and I will be heavily invested in their success. If you're ready to grab 2023 by the horns, schedule a free discovery call with me today. The link is in the show notes. And now let's get back to the show.
Okay, great. I love this one. And yeah, I think he's right. I feel like, what is ignorance? Ignorance is like an unwillingness to see things from other perspectives, I guess is like my off the bat definition for that. And I feel like you have to lean into diversity. And I think a lot of people think of a colloquial version of diversity. Listen, I haven't actually, and again, this is not to say I have the most diversity, but I have a super diverse team, super diverse. We have a white boy from Ohio who grew up with, parents who work these jobs, of one who was an entrepreneur, the mom's a teacher. That is very different than another person who, she grew up in New Jersey, was adopted by her parents, experienced foster care, super distinct people. And then I've got another person who's out in another country. We are all super diverse. And I feel like that's what enables us to have a powerful and strong team. And so that diversification, whether it's actually in your portfolio or if it's in your life, is critical. That's why I think it's important to always read things that you disagree with. And if you don't do that, that's how you're protecting your ignorance. And for a lot of the people that I think criticize me or are just don't understand why wealth building is so important, or why they think I'm obsessed with money, which is just, I think it's corny when people say that. I'm oh my God, that's so not true. But okay. I'm I'll listen to some of my podcasts, whatever. My YouTube's coming out soon. But yeah, we do have to diversify. We have to diversify in everything, in what we read, in what we consume, and who we're around. I think the most beautiful thing people can do is to visit another country at least once in their life. When you come back from a trip, it doesn't matter where in the world you go, you will come back refreshed or with an open mind, and you will realize just how small you are in the grand scheme of the world. And I think there's nothing more powerful than that. So that's how I interpret that quote.
You know what? I love it, because I believe you are the first person to interpret that quote in the avenue of life and in general, living and diversity of your life, instead of just financial. Because people hear Warren Buffett and they just automatically go to stocks, financial, all that kind of portfolio building, that kind of thing. You're the only one who took the spin on it of life. And I love that.
Thank you.
Because it does mean both things. And so we have another first here today. So I love it.
I also do have a financial answer. I didn't even interpret it that way, but I do have one of those.
No, it's too late. We're staying with the life answer.
Okay, cool.
You played Monopoly before?
Okay. I know that you asked people this and I was getting nervous and I was going to ask my boyfriend like, hey, you got to tell me. So believe it or not, no, I've
All
never.
right, so that's not a first. You're actually the second person now who has never played, so you don't have to feel bad about that. Second
Okay,
person who's
but
never
explain the
played
context. I can
Monopoly,
probably still answer.
but you know the context of it. Okay, Boardwalk is the most expensive property that you can buy,
Okay.
right? It costs more. Hotels cost more to put it on, but you get more rent, right? You get more. You could bankrupt somebody if you own, Boardwalk and what's the other one? Boardwalk and something.
Okay.
Of course, like now I'm asking that question. I don't know the other.
That's okay. Someone else
What?
listening
A
to
brain fart. I'm having a brain fart today, people. It's okay. Forgive me. I'm having a brain fart today. And then Baltic is one of the cheapest properties, right? That is, you can get easily with like little startup capital. It's not gonna take a lot for you to get that. And if you get the corresponding other properties, you can build houses much cheaper, but of course rent is lower. So if you were building a real estate portfolio, which type of property would be your first purchase or your focus to win the game?
My answer today is so different than it was a year ago. And I want to say that because again, like this transformation has been different. I would have chosen Baltic is the one that's cheap, right?
Yeah.
Baltic.
Yeah.
I would have chosen Baltic my whole life. Today, my answer is Boardwalk.
Ooh.
And the reason being, and I was actually at an Earn Your Leisure Market Mondays, which also like shout out to them for like a quick second. I'm glad you're wearing the shirt and I've got the water bottle and I think it's worth.
Yay.
I think that their work is fantastic. And I always
doing a great job.
Resource. And I just shout out to them. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, EYL.
Yeah, totally. So, and I've met them on like brief occasions, but the point is like, I feel like they're good dudes and that's important. But the reason that I mentioned this is because I was at one of their Market Monday live events, which I also won a ticket for. So that was awesome. And Don Peebles was there and Don Peebles said this quotation that like, I'll never forget. And I hope I don't butcher it right now. And I think it's like a joke from somebody else anyway. So I don't really know who originally said it. I'm just going to preface that.
Yeah.
If you borrow $100,000 from the bank and you're struggling to pay it back, you're going to be up at night. Like you can't sleep at night, right? If you borrow 500 million from the bank, why should you both be awake?
You know
what I mean? And it's just about like, go big or go home. Like you have to have the spirit and the willingness to think bigger. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned in all this. Like just how you said, you've got to have goals that scare you. Like the bank is going to be in it with you at that $500 million mark. And so it's like, you might as well bite the bullet and try it and do it, right? Like there is somebody on earth operating at that scale. There's somebody who makes it to be the president of the United States in our lifetimes every single time, right? So it's like, why can't that be you? And again, that doesn't have to, like, we don't have to define success in a traditional way. I just think find what that is for you and then go big. Like do it all the way, like commit, like live your best life. I used to have, and I'm sorry to take so much time on this, but it's something that I don't want to say like regret, but I think was definitely a fallacy of my mindset before. I used to have a really, really close friend and he was an artist and he came from like a decently stable family, a white family, all this stuff. And I used to tell him like, you're crazy for studying art in college. Like, why would you do that? Like, I don't think that makes any sense. I think you should really just focus on econ and do all this kind of stuff. And listen, he is so talented. He was talented since he was a little boy. Like you can look at his kindergarten art and you're like, wow, this kid is amazing. And I knew that in my heart of hearts, but what I believed was that he didn't need to study it or that he needed a fallback plan. And that was informed based off of my own fears and my own limitations. And I'm so proud to say that he is a thriving artist. And listen, he's like borderline making more money than the syndicators I'm working with. So I'm like, not to like put his, financials on Front Street either, but like, it's remarkable. And I'm just so deeply proud that he did that. And I feel regret for having held his vision small. So always pick the bigger thing.
Yeah. And another thing I just want to lean from that is that anybody out there listening, if people are giving you advice against what you want to do, or they're pulling back your vision, more than likely it's a reflection of their own insecurities, right? Especially if it's something that they have never done before. And we have all experienced it. Sometimes it's out of a place of love and concern, but it still is a reflection of their inner insecurities and their inner like lack of thinking big or thinking that they can do certain things. So they project that onto what you can and cannot do. So just want to put that's a lesson there to learn. And even from someone who realized that after the fact, right? And so sometimes in the moment, people are giving you the best advice that they have, but it's also based on their fear. So you have to do what you need to do.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth to me, honestly, is a mindset of abundance. I think I lived in scarcity my whole life, but now I'm in a new life, and I hope that I live double what I live now, but or have lived. But yeah, I think it's really about how you approach the world, because like, are you happy? Are you full? Do you sleep well at night? Like that to me is wealth. I don't think it's a dollar amount, because of course that changes. Like I can go move to a different country and like my wealth will like stretch me for way more than it stretches me here in New York. Like, so
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
wealth for me is more about that. And again, I don't want to, because I do think that leaning into understanding like that's a philosophical answer again. Like we do need to do the practical steps. Like you have to take that action. Like I'm sitting in the seat and I'm telling you, like I have multiple business entities open. I am participating in syndication actively. I am actually building the back end of, my website. Like that is all action that's happening. That's not like oh, well, I'm going to step into this wealth mindset. Like wealth is also like, do you actually have it? Like, are you
Yes.
authentically in pursuit of that piece, right? And where is that piece sourcing from? Like I've experienced burnout. I've poured from an empty cup, like, and so we have to be able to like put that in perspective and return to like what is wealth and how is our mind and our heart aligned with that. So
perfect.
not simple.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Okay. So final few, but we've been asking each guest to create a question for the next guest.
Okay.
So, and it could be anything. It could be business, personal, funny, serious, whatever you want to ask. So if you don't know who the next guest is going to be, but what do you think is a good final question for the next guest?
A good final question for the next guest would be, I would say, how do you use your community to build wealth? I think that's the question I would want to know. And it's one that even for myself, I'm not always sure. Like sometimes I really just want to be like, that's not working for me. Like, listen, my family struggles to understand what I do,
Yeah.
And they lived in that same scarcity and that same tumultuous upbringing that I did. Like they opened the fridge that was empty. They were cold. They were, you know what I mean? And so to me, sometimes I'm like, what do you mean? So like looking beyond that, even sometimes like their mentality around capitalism is very different than mine. And so I want to know how do you involve your community? And is that always possible? And if not, what do you do? How do you really find those people?
That'll be fun. So it's really like that birds of a feather flock together. How do you get around the group of like-minded people so that you all can like build wealth, or in your process of building wealth, like how are you leveraging your network really?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now,
yes,
I have the question from the previous guest to ask you. And honestly, because this was a little bit of a lot of like trying to get it together.
Okay.
I don't have the paper I wrote it down on.
Do you remember it or no?
Remember, but I know what we talked about. My last guest was Mr. Clive Davis. And
really? Get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
He was my last guest, and I know what we were talking a lot about. So I'm pretty sure his question was somewhere around the lines of what I'm going to repeat now.
If
Okay.
it wasn't, I'll look back at it right after this because I really want to know. And Clive, don't kill me. So I don't have your question in front of me. But we were talking a lot about generational wealth and talking about how he's doing what he's doing so that his children have options and they can go to art school if they want. They can go do whatever they want and they don't have to be focused on picking the career that only gives them like a high income because they have passive and residual income and wealth built up from what he's done and what he's helped them invest in so that whatever they want to do, like they have the option to do something because they love it and not because it pays best, right? So in that line, I feel like his last question was, if you could pass down one thing to your children that's not financial, what would it be?
Okay, so this is a great question. My mind, where my mind is at right now is just on how I'm actually passing wealth down to eventual children. So let me answer that first, and then let me share what I think can be offered. So first, I don't like. There's a difference between like what's a family office and like a trust fund. You know what I mean? Like a trust fund baby is a different experience. For me, I don't actually really want to pass money formally down to my kids. Like I'm building my wealth and my family's wealth. But the way I want the relationship between my kids and that money to be, and the reason I'm sharing this is because sometimes people look for alternatives or they don't always understand like how do you navigate that? If you've got enough money to buy them a car, why not? Right. So just bring this and then I'll go back to Clive's probable question. The way I hope to do it is to allow I'll give my kids the best rate to borrow money from me instead of the alternative, which is either the US government or some other private entity. And if their choice is to lean into using a loan from our family office to pay for their education, buy their car, build a business, then it will be through that formal relationship, because I do not want to take struggle away from them. I do not want them to, I don't want to rob them of the experience of having to raise capital, build a business. Like, but I think it's important. Some of the things that I experience, and I don't mean to like step back into the scarcity. I just think that like some parts of that are really important. Being able to put not limitations, but just allow people with their tools and their current power to like navigate. And I think like that was immensely important for me. Whenever I wanted to travel or do something, like I had to figure it out on my own. Like my parents were not going to hand over money to do it, right? Like they could help me in the ways that they could, but I think again that there always should be limitations to that. And anyway, so that's a relationship I want to have in terms of things that are not monetary to give to them. I think the most important thing I can teach them, and I just have to do this by demonstrating it to them. And this is the same thing I do I don't have kids right now, but for my students when I was a teacher, is to teach them values around family and community. The community question I ask is one that I wrestle with every single day. But I do think that building strong relationships is important. And I struggle to maintain strong relationships sometimes. Like you said, you have such a large Rolodex and it can be hard to like hit up everybody or whatever. And for me personally, I didn't grow up with somebody or like a family that was like super warm and like welcoming and like, you know, so for me, like I love that feeling of having a lot of people around, like building in community, laughing in community. And I want that reality for my kids. And so I have to like really intentionally build that and also demonstrate that healthy relationships are important to like, you know, have sisterhood, to have friendships, to have, you know, time at the table. Like Chris and I, even though we live together and we live alone, we don't have anyone else here, we eat every single meal together and we formally set up and we sit down, and that's the time for us to like talk and connect. And I think showing them that, because they could not have money, they could be anywhere in the world, but I think that human connection, that human touch, being able to like look somebody in the eye, to be compassionate and commiserate with their experiences, and to see them for their dreams and goals and purpose is beautiful. And that is something that that it's irrelevant when it comes to money. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, both of those things are my full answer to that question.
Perfect. Oh, I love it.
Hey, everyone. So I totally screwed that up. That was definitely not Clive's last question. It has nothing to do about generational wealth. And if you pass down something besides, financial, what would you pass down? I was so off. So y'all gotta forgive me, but I had to come back and let you guys know. His question was actually, in what quarter will interest rates start to decrease? Now, I sent this to Savannah to get her answer and she emailed it to me. So she said there is a chance that interest rates might go down again in the summer, but I think they'll be lowest during next Q1 of 2024. Some experts think that the government will keep interest rates low to help the economy grow and recover, but that's not promised. It's important to remember that things can change quickly. So it's a good idea to evaluate your investment so the interest rate feels less relevant to the decision before making any big commitments. And I believe that is an excellent answer. Thank you, Savannah, for sending that over to me. And sorry, Clive, I screwed up your question. All right, now back to the rest.
Thank you so much. This conversation is so chock full of just like so many gems, and I'm already just thinking about like how I'm splitting this up. Like,
I know. I was like, I don't know how we're gonna make a title for this, but
oh, it has to be like multiple titles because it's gonna be definitely multiple episodes, and that's fine.
Okay.
My last episodes with Dante, we had to split that into 3 too, but people loved it. Like, I got so much great feedback from the conversation that we had, and I think this is another one of those like just gem droppers the whole way through, right? So how can our listeners get in contact with you or connect with you if they're interested in developing a relationship or having a call with you or being part of your wealth mastermind group?
Yeah, totally. So I'm pretty easy to find. We go by like Chris and Sav Works. So you can find Sav Works on pretty much all my social media platforms. My full name is Savannah D'Orazio. I love when people reach out. I usually follow back, especially if we've met each other, especially if you come to our events and whatever, and then definitely connect on LinkedIn in terms of like meeting with me. If you visit my website, which is connected to all those accounts, there's a Calendly link, and then there's also links to the Generational Wealth course. So I want to be very honest and say that I'm only going to be teaching this course for a limited amount of time. And that's because my time is limited and I want to commit to building Casa de la Luna and, balancing that out. And I'm very excited by this course. And I think the people who it's right for stand to gain so much from it. And it is really an awesome program. And I've poured a lot of energy and time into it, into building it into something that I really think can benefit anybody. But yeah, so definitely look at that. Schedule a call with our success coaches, consider it for yourself. And then just in general, like keep in touch. I love helping entrepreneurs. I'm about to open a YouTube. And I was just outlining like my plans and schedules. And the goal there is really to teach entrepreneurs how to step into the venture capital space. So I'm going to be talking about things like family offices, fund structures. I'll be talking about how do you value your company? What is a evaluation for your company? Like how do you actually take steps on that road? How do you hire your first attorney? What is it like to hire your first employee? Just like entrepreneurship, but at scale, right? So like for larger scale ventures. And I hope that A, people will find value from that. And then B, that they connect with me, whether it's at events or anything like that. We do multi-city events. I'm in Miami, Chicago, LA, New York. I would love to build. So feel free to connect with me on any of those platforms.
Nice. I love it. And do you have a potential name for your YouTube channel once it's live?
Oh my God, that's such a great question.
Because I would put it in the links, and at least like it might not be live when this airs, but whenever it does air, people in the future who listen could access the link. But you know what? Even if you don't have the name now, whatever it is, once you have it, send it to me. We'll add it to the show notes.
We've got a channel. And so it's so funny. Chris has his podcast name already set. He's had it set for a long time. And so funny. I don't have one in particular, but I got to think about one. I didn't even think about that. I'm so excited to like provide the value. I'm like, I guess it'll definitely be from that channel though. And you can find us if you Google Generational Wealth Works, and our website is generationalwealthworks.com. So we'll link all these things. It's pretty much like if you just Google my name, the stuff comes up. And
Perfect. So if it's on the YouTube channel that you already have, and it'll just be like a subsection or series or something, we'll just put that YouTube channel in the notes. Okay.
Beautiful.
All
okay.
right. Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Savannah.
you.
This was a great conversation. I know we were a lot of hit and miss this week just trying to connect before our call, but I'm glad it ended up this way. And then we have a lot more to talk about later, because I just want to, I think we can build on a lot of things. There's a lot of synergy there. So,
absolutely. And honestly, I just want to reiterate, you sound so excited and like ready for all the goals that you've set. And the energy is clear. Like, you are fantastic. And if there's any way that I can ever help or whatever, like, please let me know. And then I would love to lean on you for support and in my building.
Yeah, of course.
Out to entrepreneurs who need this. So thank you for your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on and sharing with everyone. Thank you. So we'll be in touch. And everyone, I always forget to say this at the beginning. Please, if I know you got value from this, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen. Please give us a rating and a review. Just like the podcast. It helps this message get out to more people, because then we rank higher in the algorithm and all the stuff, right? So we want this message to get out. We want generational wealth to spread. We want the different options to be there and people's mindsets to be shifted and paradigms to be changed. So we need your help to do that. And if you have not liked or subscribed to the channel and whatever platform you listen, please do that. And please also share this episode with one other person that needs to hear it. Okay. So thank you so much. And I will see you on the next show.
Did you love this episode of Share the Wealth Show? Be sure to connect with Nicole by following her on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. If you picked up any of the gems that were dropped by today's guest, make sure you not only put them in your bag, but if you know of someone who would benefit from this information, don't keep it to yourself. Share the wealth and make sure to leave us a rating and review. We'll see you for next week's episode. Subscribe so you'll be notified.